Greetings and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as the Lost. Something very intriguing happened in this run, and that's the very first treasure room. And of course we know with reroll machines there's so many different variations and items that you can get out of it. And depending on the items that you pick up previously, it can really change the outcome of the items that you're gonna get. So for example, if you have something like the D7, which is an active item, and if you reroll before or after picking it up, the result is gonna be different, or which item you roll into is gonna be different. And that's because the item pool shrinks when you pick up that item, and because of that, that means that something else entirely different is generated. It also depends on which items you get from other sources. So let's say in this case, because I went to the boss room, I saw the item that was in the boss room, I then went back and re-rolled, and that's gonna give me a different outcome. So if you actually think about it, there's a few different ways of just kind of forcing different items that you can get through that particular room. So what you can do is not pick up any active items and re-roll, you can pick up the active item and re-roll, and then you have the combinations of both going to the boss room before picking up and after picking up the active item, and also going to the treasure room, or not going to the boss room, that's what I meant, and going to the boss room. So there's like 4 or maybe even 8 in some sense. I'm not really sure, it's hard to do mental math as I'm actually talking, but there's a few combinations of items that you can get. So the fact that I got Epic Fetus, which is probably the best out of the bunch, is really lucky, and I'm really glad that this actually happened. Because of that, because I got Epic Fetus, I thought this was going to be something that not a lot of people would experience. I would imagine that maybe some people would have found it, but obviously I'm just so ahead of the curve right now, because all of the other items that I've seen so far don't really warrant a good run. Sure, you get a Tears upgrade maybe, and you get Mr. Dolly, and sure you get Sackboy, but those items on their own won't really make a good Lost run. I really feel like Epic Fetus is one of the items that works extremely well on the Lost, and that's mainly because you already have Flight. I think Epic Fetus is a pretty good item already, but with Flight especially, it does allow you to be so much safer because you can walk over chasms, spikes, you can go over walls, and it's just much easier to aim and actually to kind of warrant where the enemies are gonna come from. So for that reason I decided to pick it up. I thought this was gonna be it, and for that reason I decided to swap out my D4. I decided to take the Head of Krampus, but later on I got the Jar, so you can probably see in which direction I'm going with this already. Obviously, I'm hoping to get maybe something like Humbling Bundle, or maybe Contract from Below, or maybe even Maggie's what's it called, the one that gives you more health whenever you pick it up. Meg is something, and essentially all of those items would allow me to break with the jar much more easily. But I said, because I thought it was gonna be a really good run, and especially as it turns out later to be, I decided that I'm gonna actually go really hard on that. I did take the jar and use it to the greatest effect possible, and what happened at the end will blow your mind. Well, it won't really blow your mind, that's kind of a clickbait title. It's not title, is just like clickbait inside of the video, but essentially I finished in the very first spot. And what's really interesting to me is that my first spot, usually when you finish in the first spot it's really tight for time, but I actually had around 44,000 points, or almost 45,000, and the second one only had 39,000 points, so I was 5,000 points ahead of the second player, which was just crazy to me. This has never happened to me. I did have some good scores in the past, I did finish first in some places, but I've never had such a commanding lead, and I do hope that at the end of the day, this obviously turns into a top 3 at least, if not the top 1, and I'm really excited to actually see where this is going. But obviously at this point, this run was just going out of control, because I also got Dark Judas, and with Dark Judas you just get immense damage, and because immense damage just works so well with Epic Fetus, we are essentially one-shotting every enemy that we come across. I hope that Jacob's Ladder in this case would have some synergy, but as is custom in Afterbirth Plus, all of the new items, or at least most of the new items, don't really have any synergies with the old items, so that's kind of a bummer, so nothing good really happened there. If I was really forcing myself, or if I played a little bit better, I think my score could be even greater, because I did take some unnecessary damage at some points, and that's obviously my biggest mistake, I think. And also I think I could have gone just a bit faster, because obviously with a combo like this, you really can't go wrong. What kind of sealed the deal for me, that gave me an impression that this is gonna be an extremely strong round for me, was when I picked up Ipecac. And Ipecac just gives you like 40 damage, and with Epic Fetus that means we're gonna be one-shotting every single boss from this point on. Thankfully, because this is a round that goes only to Mom's Food, we don't have to face Harsh, which means that the biggest obstacle in this game is already beat after we actually complete Boss Rush. So the fact we can just go in any dark room, go in, just set up a Epic Fetus bomb and kill that enemy is just, that's it, you know. I knew there was gonna be a one run, and for that reason I decided maybe it's a good idea to actually invest some time into just breaking the game with the jar, and I'm hoping that this would actually net me in a pretty good spot. Normally I wouldn't maybe bother that much with breaking the game, because I don't think it has that much of an influence. But in this particular case, just because of how good the odds look that I was actually gonna rank really well, I decided to go for it. I also did kind of finagle with some ace of clubs sometimes, try to get more Shrek bonus, and I was trying to max my consumables obviously to 99. That's just one way of kind of breaking the run. And to kind of finish it all off, just to go to the dark room, I was hoping for a sacrifice room, and thankfully there was a sacrifice room on this particular floor. I stuck with the moon card so I could go to boss rush, beat it, and then teleport out, and obviously when I teleport out after, I can explore the rest of the floor, which I didn't really have the time to explore before, and also I can go to the sacrifice room and then go to the dark room, and basically the rest is history. So at this point, because I pretty much described the whole run about what's gonna go, and it's just me trying to break the game to some extent, I'm trying to play the blood banks to get as much. One thing that I would like to point out is that Bomb Friend, I believe this is an addition in Afterbirth, but also in Afterbirth Plus, I'm not sure. But essentially the daily run, I mean in Afterbirth Plus, but I'm not sure about Afterbirth. But essentially Bomb Friend and all of the other bombs, I believe, when they pick up a consumable, they actually give you points for picking up that consumable. So previously, like a few months ago, I thought that picking up Bomb Friend is a bad idea because sure, in some cases he will take your coins and that will make you so you can't break the game, and that's obviously pretty bad. But I thought that he just takes your coins, and because he takes your coins, you basically can get anything out of it. And I think he does pay out somewhat regularly with keys and bombs, and maybe points-wise it does come up to a hold, or at least you break even. But for what it's worth, I thought that he just takes your coins. But what actually happens is that even after he takes your coins, he actually still gives you the points for the coins he takes, which just makes him so much greater. Because that means even if he pays out with a consumable after, that consumable is still gonna contribute to your points. Essentially like you're getting double points in some extent. So Bomb Friend is actually a pretty good item to pick up whenever you're trying to go for swag or just trying to break the game in some sense. Not break the game, but just trying to get a lot of consumables. But obviously if you're trying to break the game and if you rely on maybe like the D20, having any of the bombs is going to be very detrimental because they're going to take the consumables on the ground, you won't be able to reroll them into more chests, or even if you are able, it's just going to take much longer. That's something that you generally don't want to do. In this case, I decided to take him because he was in a boss trap room, and first of all, I thought that just completing the boss trap room is already gonna be enough to kind of pay for itself, but also the fact I mentioned is when he picks up coins, he gives you kind of other consumables in return, and because of how it works, he kinda gives you a double consumable, so I thought it was gonna be a good idea, especially in this case. What's even greater that even though I can't rely, I mean I don't have to rely on other breaking methods, like I said before, like maybe the D20, so I wasn't that worried that he was gonna take my points, or just take my consumables so I wouldn't be able to break. I knew that I was gonna break with the jar, gonna use the jar to its greatest effect to get a lot of hearts, and for that I don't really need any of the bombs to even worry about. So to kinda make my job a bit easier to break with the jar, what I do is just I go through the whole floor. I did use my deck of cards a bunch of times. I spawn a bunch of cards, I spawn a bunch of hearts, I use the lovers, I think that's basically it, and I have the Yara rune from before, so I just go around collecting all of the hearts in the jar and depositing them in one single room, and after I deposit all of the hearts that exist with the Ace of Hearts and the Two of Hearts, not the Two of Hearts, but the lovers and the Yara rune, I will then duplicate them with a Yara rune, and then basically I just go to town and I start spamming my spacebar button. I don't really have a good maybe advice on how to do this other than just it takes a lot of time. I think I broke for 20 minutes, which may be a bit longer than any of you are willing, but like I said, just because I thought that it was gonna be a really good run, I decided to invest some time. But my strategy was I would go along the top row, I would then press the spacebar button basically every 4 hearts, I would go by the second row, again I would do the same, and then the third, and then the fourth. So I was kind of methodic about how I broke. Maybe it's not the most optimal way of doing things, but it seems to work out pretty well for me. You can see that my Shrek bonus is almost maxed out. I do imagine that you can get it a bit higher, but the problem is that even though that this method does give you a lot of Shrek bonus because of how slow it is, eventually that diminishing returns is gonna hit and your time penalty is gonna overtake the bonus that you get from collecting the hearts, so it's not really gonna be positive after a certain point. So as soon as you see that your counter isn't increasing anymore, or maybe when it starts falling, you should just kind of bail and just go to the boss and just finish the run at that point. So 45,000 points on a run that goes to only Mom is amazing. It's great, especially on a lost run. And you have to imagine, everyone who got to the end had to get through Krampus in the Devil Deal, which is obviously very hard if you didn't find Epic Fetus. They also had to get through that little Loki, which spawns black black orbs, balls, whatever. And they also had to get through Reg Mega and Boss Rush if they wanted to do it. I think that most of people would have found Judas a Shadow, but all of those 3 obstacles appeared before the depths, or at least before the 3rd floor. I think that's where the Judas a Shadow appeared, which means that even just getting by them or just completing the run is probably already gonna put you in a very good place. So a very decent run. I hope I finish in first, and I hope that you take something away from this. I think there's a lot of things to be taught here, and definitely some luck involved as well, but I definitely think like I played this one particularly well, and I hope that it shows in my ranking. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys, and I hope to see you next time.